Welcome to The Real Build. I'm your host, Bill Ryman, your broker builder, and today we have a special guest coming all the way across the country from Fresno, California. He's known as the Phenom Investor, and you can find him all over social media teaching you the best wholesale strategies. He's been in real estate since 2008, actually a real estate broker. He's the CEO of Matt Buys Houses, which is a real estate solutions company. They're family-owned business, and they focus on helping homeowners find solutions for their problems, whether they're going through a foreclosure, can't sell their property, or just need to sell their house for any reason. His company's there. He's a member of the Arete Syndicate, an exclusive invite-only society of overachieving entrepreneurs. I'm a fellow Arete member as well. Arete was obviously, I've talked about it in the past, created to help men and women take control and dominate every area of their lives. And most importantly, he's a husband and father of 2 boys. Matt Garabedian, welcome to the show.
Thank you, man. Where do I send my check? That was an awesome intro. Thank you for the warm welcome. I appreciate being on The Real Build here, Bill. And everything you just mentioned is kind of encapsulates who I am and what I stand for. Obviously, it's been great meeting you through the Arete, and looking forward to continue to get to know each other more. I appreciate guys that are obviously, entrepreneurs, hustlers, and then in the real estate business. So you're a man after my own heart already. And I love the Alec Monopoly pieces behind you. I think I meant before we started, but I like cool art like that too. So yeah, man, thanks for having me. I'd be happy to answer any questions and, maybe help a few folks out that are listening and maybe, interested to see what the heck is wholesaling.
Yeah, Matt, no, I'm pumped to have you on. You're actually the first wholesale guy I've had on this show too. So, I know you're going to give a lot of great info because it's a pretty big topic, whether people are trying to get into wholesaling or they're actually trying to wholesale their property. There's a lot to know, a lot to learn.
Yep.
So everybody get your pen and paper ready because we're going to ask some good questions here. So Matt, what I like to actually start out with, getting started, and I do this with everybody, is your background. So let's talk about who is Matt Garabedian.
Who is Matt? Okay. I was born and raised in Fresno, California. So it's a small farming town right in the middle of California. So I'm 3 hours south of San Francisco and 3 hours north of Los Angeles. So right smack in the middle. If you eat fruit and produce, more than likely you probably had some of the, little tangerines or raisins, that are actually grown here in the valley. So, growing up, I got involved early in sports. And so from a very, young age, I was always in Little League and Pop Warner. So I was always playing sports, and that kind of kept my life busy, and didn't really think about, what I wanted to be when I grew up. And so I ended up focusing all my time, effort, and energy into sports, and, decided that I wanted to, my dream was to play college baseball, and, had that opportunity to do that. Although I wasn't a highly recruited guy, I ended up walking on to Long Beach State, which was at the time they were the number 2 team in the country. So they had just played in the College World Series, and going into that new season, very high expectations. So it was really like a long shot that I would even make the team because, in Division I they have scholarships, and it's almost like it's a business. They're recruiting guys, and they're paying for tuition and books and stuff. So I was very little known, but I had this big dream to play college baseball. So I just had this faith and this belief that I could hold my own. So my parents kind of, packed me in the van, and we dropped me off at the dorm. And, through basically, I believe God's grace and intervention, couple things happened where one of the guys that they had recruited and signed to a scholarship ended up quitting. And so they called me, like, hey, you know, if there's a spot open, if you want to walk on, we'll give you a shot. I ended up walking on, making the team, spent 4 years there, had the greatest time of my life. It was awesome. Well, you know, I never had any fancies or beliefs that I was going to play Major League Baseball. So when baseball finished, it was like, okay, you know, now what do I do? And I remember answering this ad in the Orange County Register down there. It was saying, like, you know, work for, you know, the Anaheim Angels and their division, sports marketing division, and work with, you know, high performance, make as much money as you can, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, wow, this is perfect. So, you know, I ended up calling the ad, and they're like, yeah, you know, you sound great. Why don't you come in for an interview? And the dress code, you know, you have to wear a suit and tie, but bring comfortable shoes. I was like, all right, cool. I hung up. I was like, that's kind of an odd request. So I didn't think anything of it. So I show up. The office is like kind of right by the Anaheim Angels stadium. And I walk in, and there's like 50 other guys in there with suits and like Nikes on. And there's like if you ever seen that movie, The Boiler Room, you know, like they're like working on their pitches and talking. And then it clicked. I'm like, oh my God, dude, I just walked into a door-to-door sales company, you know, and they just had this like great ad that, you know, caught people's attention. But little did you know, like, you're literally going to be thrown into a van. You're going to, you know, be dropped off in a neighborhood, and you're going to be left to walk around this neighborhood and try to sell whatever we were selling at the time. And you kind of left up to your own skill set and how hard you work. You know, and I look back at it and I'm like, you know, had I not given that an opportunity, I don't know, you know, where I would have been, only because it taught me about sales. I was going into it with no preconception, and I didn't think going door to door was below me or anything. I was actually interested in learning about the job. So we'd go in, we'd work on our scripts, and then they load you up in the van, and every week we had something new. So, you know, the reason they tied Anaheim Angels into that ad was because we were actually selling Pizza Hut coupons, and part of the hook was a buy one, get one free baseball ticket up in the nosebleeds. So, you know, they use the marketing for the Anaheim Angels as kind of like, you know, your hook to get you in. But, you know, I didn't know any better. And at the time, they're like, you can make $100 a day. So for a college kid who was like operating off of like $100 a month, that was a lot of money. And so I just learned the script, I practiced it, and then I went out and I started knocking on doors, and I quickly learned how to build rapport. I quickly learned, you know, not to take a no to heart. I quickly learned that it's all prospecting, and then, you know, the key is you got to get through all the people that you disqualify, because after 5 o'clock, the people that the decision makers get home. So we wanted to identify those 5, 6, 10 possible buyers, and the people that were actually going to pay for it got home. So between like 5 and 6, I would make all my sales, right? And I would continually do this, and I was making money. And so I was like, man, like, sales is awesome. Like, you know, I could really do this. And I stuck with it for probably, you know, 6 or 8 months. And, you know, at the time, my parents, you know, really wanted me to get into some type of higher education. I didn't really think that was me. I didn't think I really wanted to pursue it. So I kind of, you know, ended up getting into this master's program, and did 18 months of it. And then during that time, my parents were like, yeah, you know, it's time to come home, because, you know, the jobs weren't really, you know, doing too well, and the prospects. So I get home and I'm like, man, I don't know what to do. Like, I just end up like being super like depressed. Like, you know, I had all this freedom. I was like living the best time of my life. And then all of a sudden I find myself back in the bedroom that I grew up in. And I'm like, man, like, this is not what I anticipated. You know, like, I thought I had a much bigger, brighter future ahead of me. Now I'm back in Fresno, you know, away from all my friends and all the people that I, you know, grew up to hang out with and really like, and everyone else that I knew in Fresno was kind of off doing their own thing. So, you know, right around that time, you know, the economic downturn hadn't quite taken place, but it was about 2005 is when I started getting into learning about wholesaling subprime mortgages. So I first got my start in finance. So what I would do is I would go and visit these mortgage brokers and look at their credit reports and 1003s for people that just walk in and want to get a mortgage. And my company was the one that would actually, package these loans up. We'd have a warehouse line, fund them all, and then that line would be sold off to Wall Street, right? I didn't know anything of this. I had no idea. If you watch the movie The Big Short, I was probably representing the company that was doing the toxic of the toxic loans. The 100% stated, hey, if this guy's a pulse, we'll give you a loan. Those types of deals. So I had a 2-year run of that where I started making some good money. Like, I think the first couple of months I had made, average $8,000 to like $15,000 a month. So I thought like I was rich, so I went out, bought the brand new house, brand new furnishings, took a trip to Europe. I'm just like this bachelor thinking like, dude, this is never going to end. Well, as we know, in 2008, everything collapsed, right? So I wake up one morning and I'm locked out of my, my internet, and, I call my manager. He's like, doesn't look, you probably have to start looking for something else because the company's gone. I'm like, what? He's like, aren't you watching the news, dude? I'm like, no, like I'm just clueless, right? And so I start figuring out what's going on. Then after a while, money stops coming in, bills don't stop. So I start getting into real financial trouble. Make a long story longer, I end up losing my house to foreclosure, and my car repossessed, going tens of thousands into debt. And, right at the same time, God thought it would be, convenient for me to be introduced to my then fiance, or my girlfriend, which then turned into my wife. And, I'm like, I have no clue how I'm going to support another person, let alone myself. But for whatever reason, she saw, something else in me and, stuck with me. And so I'm just kind of at the low point. I'm like, I don't know what to do. I have no other skill set. I thought that this was going to be the answer. It's not. And growing up, my grandfather was he had a real estate broker. So he always told me, get your license to sell real estate. It's a license to make money, is what he told me. Mm-hmm. So facing really no potential prospects, no, opportunities, I'm like, well, I could give this real estate deal a shot. And since I had a bachelor's already, at the time, all I needed to do was pass a few courses, and I could bypass the agent and go straight to a broker. So that's what I did. And I studied for the exam. It took me a couple times to pass it, but I ended up getting my broker's license. And for the next, I don't know, couple years, I tried out different avenues in real estate. So I was the residential guy. I was, leasing guy. I learned about commercial, retail. I had built and sold a property management company. I mean, you name it, I did it, right? But in the back of my mind, I'm like, this is not it. I didn't see an avenue where I could really turn it into a business. I thought everything was very transactional. I'm running around chasing deals, especially when I started building the property management company. I was running around. I grew my company fast because I was the guy that would drive all over town, knock on tenants' doors, collect the rent, and then deliver it to my owner. No one taught me the business, so I didn't know there was any better way to do it. So I led with service. And, I'm a guy that's aggressive, and I'm working hard, and so I'm building this business and doing a favor for a lot of my owners, and so they liked that because I was aggressive and I was taking care of their money and they trusted me. But I was just working myself into burnout, and there wasn't much money to be made. So around 2010, a guy in an office that I was in, I remember him literally like, he was like this, like shaking his head. And I walk in there, and this guy's been a veteran of the commercial business at that time for like 30 years. I'm like, hey, what's going on? Like, you look like you're upset. He's like, I just can't take this anymore. Like, I can't handle the ups and downs. I can't handle that. I've got deals in escrow, development deals that are literally been in escrow for 4 years. You know, I have no control. I have no idea when deals are going to close. Potentially they can make me hundreds of thousands, but potentially it could just sit there and die on the vine, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking like, dang, this guy's been doing this for 30 years. And he's like, you know, really like flustered and doesn't see any future. So I'm sitting in this office and I'm like, I don't want to be that guy. You know, there's obviously, you know, he's not happy with what he's doing. At the same time, I start seeing, you know, these like, at the time the, you know, pop-ups were kind of new, you know, for internet.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I start getting these pop-ups about, you know, the no money down real estate, right? Everyone's seen those at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Make money without having any money in real estate. And I'm like, kind of like, whatever. That's like some type of BS, some scam. But, you know, I ended up like signing up for a newsletter and started getting some information about, you know, how you can actually make money without having any money or credit or experience. And I'm like, okay, like, what's this all about? I see this guy. He's actually in Florida. His name's Preston Ely. And so he was like the original rock star, you know, real estate sales and education guy that, you know, kind of turned everything on their head. Like he was this young guy in his 20s hanging out at Starbucks and showing these checks, like 10,000, 15,000, 30,000, 8,000, 7,000. And he's just like hanging out. Like he like reminded me of like a buddy. Like I'm like, what's this guy doing? Right. So I ended up buying a course and I start, you know, reading about how you can wholesale real estate. So when I learned about it, it took me a while to wrap my head around it because I had that broker, you know, mentality. I'm in a box, like this is how you do deals. Anything outside of it, I don't understand. If, you know, if I could fit it in the box, I could help you. Other than that, I have no idea. So this started opening up some ideas into like, man, I wonder if this really works. So I, you know, to be honest with you, like I kind of shelved the idea and got comfortable doing what I was doing and back in the routine of being transactional based, being the broker, driving around town, writing offers, taking orders. I was just an order taker. And I don't know what it was, but there was one point I was up really late one night and I got to the point where I was like, enough's enough. You know, there was at that time I joined there was a Facebook page that all other wholesalers around the country, you know, would post their, you know, checks or, hey, I got this deal and this and telling like how they made the deal happen. And literally I'm looking at some of these people and they have maybe 6 months experience in real estate. And at that time I'm working at, you know, probably 3-4 years of experience and not have anything really to show for it. I'm like, you know what? Like, I'm overthinking this. And I'm just going to go out and see what happens. I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to legitimately give it a shot. So, you know, the first step in, you know, wholesaling is you got to find a motivated seller, right? Like that's the first step in putting a wholesale deal together. So essentially what you're doing is you're marketing to find a motivated seller that's willing to sell the property to you for less than market value. Okay. And the way that I was taught to market to these sellers was direct mail. So you'd send these, at the time, it was a yellow letter. So it looked exactly like I don't know, I don't have an example with me, but it's like a little like, you know, you've seen those attorney, you know, draft yellow letters with the lines. And the way it's supposed to look is like I handwritten it. You know, so at the time when I was using it, it had great effect because a lot of people weren't using it. So it looked like this, you know, I wrote this personal letter to this homeowner that I was really interested in buying their house. You know, I could pay cash, I could close quickly, I could buy it as is, et cetera, et cetera. So my first time I sent out something like 300 letters and I ended up getting like 2 or 3 calls. Well, 2 of them were like, don't ever mail me again, you know, take me off your list. And one of them was like, hey, I got this house, go drive by it and let me know what you could do. So that I called, I talked to him like, okay, great, I'll drive by. And so I drove by this house and this house was like in the hood, right? It was like a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, just absolute beater. So bad piece of bad information that I got at the time was like, hey, when you're making offers to a seller, if the offer doesn't make you feel super uncomfortable, you're offering too much. That was the advice that I got, not like, hey, take comps, figure in the after repair value, figure in, the actual cost of repairs minus this, minus that, and you get your max offer, right? That's how it's taught now. But back then it was like, man, like you have to almost be like dry heaving. You're so embarrassed to give this guy an offer. So I kind of took that advice. So, I'm sitting outside this guy's house. I call him. I have no idea what I'm going to offer, what even is a legit offer. So he answers like, yeah, I'm like, I'm out here, and I'm stumbling and stuttering over my words. I'm like actually getting like sweaty palms. I think like, man, if I give this guy a little offer, is he going to come like find me and like, kill me or something? I was like going through all these like weird things in my head, but I worked up the nerve and I sat there and I'm like, yeah, I could pay you $16,000 for the house. And he kind of like, nah, he's like, I can't do 16, but I can do 25. I'm like, great. He's like, all right, we'll have the paperwork ready. I'll come by the office tomorrow and sign it. I'm like, perfect. So I rushed back to the office there, and I'm like, okay, he said he'd take 25. I have no idea if that's even a deal, right? So at the time, I didn't know how to find a buyer. So the next piece is now I've got a motivated seller. I think I have it for a good price. Now I don't even have 25 grand to my name. I can't buy this house. And I have no means of credit because I lost everything in the crash, and there's no way anybody's going to give me a loan. And so, the next step is, okay, now I've got to find someone that would actually buy this house. So a cash buyer. I didn't really know how to find it, but since I was a broker, I had access to the MLS. Mm-hmm. I did a quick comp search and found that, actually right down the street, there was a similar like kind of property that sold for $52,000. Okay. I pulled up the tax records. It's some LLC. Have no idea even how to find that person at the time. I didn't even know what skip tracing was. But, I saw that the agent who represented him, I could get his number. So I called the agent. He's like, picks up. I'm like, hey man, my name's Matt. Hey, I noticed that you sold this house, a couple streets down. I got another one. Would your buyer be interested in buying another? He was like, well, tell me what it is. I'm like, yeah, it's a 2-1, 800 something square feet, just like the one that you have. He's like, well, what do you want for it? I'm like, 52. And he's literally, this is what he said. He's like, don't tell anybody else about the deal. We'll have the money in escrow next week. Wow. I'm like, okay, click, and hang up. And now I'm thinking, wait a second. I said 52. I have a contract for 25. That's $27,000 that I can make. I'm like, it ain't going to happen. This is not real. Sure enough, the seller comes in. He signs the contract. I send my assignment agreement. It gets signed. So I'm like, now I've got two documents. I've got a willing seller and I've got a willing buyer. Now we put it into escrow, and I hope, the prelim comes back clean. I hope that the seller signs the deed, and I hope to God that the buyer actually shows up and is real. I think 2.5 weeks go by. Sure enough, seller signs, buyer funds. Title calls me up. Yep, we closed. We have your check. And at that point, I went to the title company and I saw this check for $27,000, and it completely changed my life. Because, as an agent, right, had I not invested in myself, had I not went out and like wanting something more, believing there's something bigger, I mean, Bill, like, if I sell a house for $52,000 and I make 3%, that's $1,560 as an agent that I make. In the past, I probably would have like, hey, let me call around and see if I can make a quick, deal. Let me find a buyer that might like the property and just broker it, right? Yeah. Well, I learned this skill that actually made me the investor. I controlled the asset. I wasn't interested in putting a sign in the front yard and, doing the walkthroughs and doing the paperwork. Now I controlled the asset, and I could decide how I wanted or who I wanted to sell it to or for how much. that was a lucky, kind of deal because, it's kind of hard to, find someone to buy your property on the very first call, but it happened. So I made $27,000 on that first deal, and then I went all in. I took my broker cap off. I distanced myself from, people knowing me as a broker or an agent, not because I didn't want to sell houses forever, but I'm like, there's no way I'm going to focus on this when I see this as the opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Like I made the proof of concept real. That money is in my bank account. I'm never going back. So then I just went all in on figuring out how to do more. So then, I started investing into my marketing. Calls started coming in. I started doing deals, right? So I was the one-man show. Man, I think I'm going off on a tangent here.
No, that's actually you're spot on to my next question. But yeah, no, this is awesome. Just because
so that's how it started in the business. But we can continue on with the questions.
Yeah, no, you're fine because this is awesome. Just because it's crazy how everything kind of happened for you as life went on and everything too. Coming from college as a college athlete, which I came from a similar situation. I was a college athlete, came out of college, football ended for me. I was broke. Yeah. And then you have to figure, I was a similar situation. I went in the car business, which taught me a lot of different stuff too at a young age, and cold calls and just going up to people and leads blind and everything too. But that's where we got to where we were too. So, your stories, it's awesome to hear too. And that's kind of where, go ahead.
I think for anybody listening to this, it's like, it's not that I had an advantage over anybody or anything special, but I never lost sight of the fact that there was a bigger opportunity, there was a bigger dream, and the key is, guys, just find that vehicle, right? Find the vehicle that not only will allow you to have that opportunity, but is worth your time and effort, right? Because I talk to a lot of guys. They're like, man, I want to make $1 million. I'm like, well, what do you do? Like, I'm a real estate agent. Okay. Well, what's the average price per, the average median sale? Oh, it's like 250. And so I'm calculating that. I'm like, yeah, that's a long road to go.
Yeah.
You got to sell a lot of houses at that median price. Plus, when you start getting bigger, you're going to have to hire people. And then after taxes and all that, it's just not a good vehicle for me. I just didn't see how I could be a broker and get to my goal, right? And everyone's goal is different, but for me, I just needed to find a different vehicle because I wanted to be a guy that's owning apartments. I wanted to be the guy that has rentals. I want to put my money in notes. I want to have vacations and nice things and everything. So, that's just what I thought, and I found this vehicle to do. And that's what I encourage anybody is just whatever you're planning on doing, and even if you're in it, just make sure that it's a vehicle that can get you to your destination. I think that's important to consider.
Yeah, that's spot on. I highly agree because, even just being your typical real estate agent, you got to have a lot of listings and a lot of, set transactions per year to hit that $1 million mark too. And it just depends where you're at because not everybody's in a multi-million-dollar area or luxury area or dealing with luxury too. So
if you're in LA or New York, I'm like, okay, work your way up 5 years, get a name for yourself, and then start, listing, high-rise buildings. That's a vehicle. I get it. But, it's got to make sense financially.
So basically, you started getting into this, and that was my next topic. You are the CEO of your company, Matt Buys Houses. Obviously we heard your story up into it, and that's where, how did the company start, and why did you choose? You got into why did you choose real estate and wholesale over other company, other businesses or sales, different sales platforms?
I don't know because my first I guess it goes back to the vehicle part, right? Because one of my first jobs when I came back to Fresno from college, I skipped over that part, but I was doing business to business sales for cell phones. So at the time it was Nextel. You remember Nextel, where you had the walkie-talkie, and they ended up selling to Sprint. So that was my first real corporate job. But, I was just doing that to survive. And then, but I was pretty good at wherever I went, I sold. So, but I just saw like, okay, like I had this huge month and my paycheck was, wasn't really commensurate to my effort.
Mm-hmm.
And then I thought like, oh, well, the answer is pharmaceutical sales because those guys make huge money. At the time, I thought that was huge money because they were getting a salary of 65, 70,000, and then bonuses they could, bonus out and maybe make six figures. So at the time I thought, man, if I can make $100,000, I mean, I'm set, $100,000 a year, like that's like way out here. But like, man, like if I could do that, I'm rich, right? I don't have to work another day of my life. That's kind of how you think. And so I'm always trying to figure out like, how can I get to that $100,000, right? And then, it led me to real estate because, you're selling higher ticket items, right?
Mm-hmm.
A house, you're going to make a good commission if you could sell. And so I think it was just, a money motivated thing, because I was just so bruised and beat up from, losing everything that, I was money motivated, to come out of that. And to, I kind of had a chip on my shoulder. Like, most people think I'm not going to make it. I've already failed. I've already lost, a house, a foreclosure. I'm embarrassed about that. But, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to make sure that I'm working I keep saying the vehicle because that's really, it just made sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't make the type of money I wanted by selling cell phones.
Yeah.
Just calculate.
Yeah, exactly. That's awesome. Great story. Awesome to hear too. And I mean, as you know, too, this show is all about delivering as much value to the customer as possible. So I want to actually get into the actual process of what you're doing. So, with the whole thing. So let's start with how the wholesale process works. What should potential customers look for when dealing with a company like yours? Why should they wholesale and not list with a typical broker?
Oh, good question. So we're not for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that, most 99% of the people we talk to is not a fit, but there is that 1% that we talk to that there is a fit. And typically these people end up selling to us for various reasons. There's life events, there's financial events, there's motivation. For example, one of our biggest marketing channels is to absentee landlords. High equity, absentee meaning high equity. They have a lot of equity in the property. Absentee meaning they don't live in the house.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's a rental. Typically, we're also targeting specific age groups. So they've owned the home for X amount of years. They're X amount of years old. They have X amount of equity, and they live out of state. Well, when you start combining those factors, you start talking to people that are burned out. They're frustrated because they've gone through 3 tenants in the last 18 months. They just finished up an eviction. They just put a bunch of money into the last tenant, and the last tenant ruined the property. Or, they're just, they've been landlord for 20 years and now they want to enjoy their life.
Mm-hmm.
And so they don't want to deal with, going through, putting a sign in the yard, having people come in and out of the property, dealing with all kinds of different offers, waiting for someone to get an appraisal, waiting for someone to get, approved for a loan. As you know, there's a lot of moving parts in a real estate transaction. Well, if something happens, in that process, the deal falls apart.
Mm-hmm.
What I can do is tell Mr. Homeowner, look, we don't need to get an appraisal. We don't need to get financing. We can walk through the property in less than 10 minutes and give you an offer. And our offer's cash. We can close on a date of your choosing. We can buy it without you doing any repairs. You're not going to get a repair request from me. So I'm going to formulate my offer where I'm 100% confident that I can perform. And we do deals like that all the time. Another example was, these are unfortunate things, but we recently bought a house where the roof had caved in on the people. One of the men that lived there was elderly. The health inspection came in and they're like, we're going to condemn this house. And, the family didn't have the money to do the repairs. They didn't know that there's other options. So luckily they got a hold of us. We went in and saw it. I mean, this thing was a disaster. You know, most agents are probably like, dude, I can't do anything with that. But we came in, found out what they needed, ended up buying the house from them, gave them some money so that they could walk away and actually get a livable place. And they were like so grateful for us, you know, because they were like, we didn't know what to do. We thought, you know, we were going to end up, I mean, sad thing to say, we thought we were going to end up dying in this house, you know, without any resources. You know, when it rains, rain was coming on them. I mean, it was a bad situation.
Yeah.
You know, we deal with that stuff all the time. People that, you know, inherited a house and you know, their uncle was a hoarder. I mean, I've bought in houses where, I mean, to the roof stuff is stacked in the backyard. I mean, you know, $15,000-$20,000 worth of dump fees. But,
Crazy.
you know, those are some of the best deals we've gotten because the people are like, I don't even know. Like, I can't even begin to deal with this. I just want my money and I'm out. And, you know, that's another scenario. I mean, people go through divorce, people go through financial difficulty. You know, there's a guy that, hey, I just got a job transfer. I don't have time to stick a sign in the front yard. What's the best offer you can give me? Because I got to go. There's so many different reasons why people end up selling to a cash buyer.
Yeah.
That you wouldn't imagine. But, you know, again, like I said, the majority of people don't need our services, and we understand that. So we're very upfront. We're very honest about who we are, what we do. I pride myself on our reputation. We're very ethical. We're not there to take advantage of anybody. We disclose from the beginning that we are investors, that we do intend to make a profit on the sale. And we just give them our best offer and say, here's what we could do. If it works for you, great. We could perform. If not, I understand. And a lot of times I'm telling people, I'm not for you. You know, you should go list it. You'll get more money. So, you know, I think honesty is the best policy. You know, giving people actual advice that will help them and benefit them, and not just line, you know, my pockets. I mean, I walk away from deals where, you know, I know that the person can do better, you know, and so I'm very, you know, upfront with them and say, you know, I'm just not for you. And at the end of the day, people appreciate that, and they appreciate the fact that we're just forward and honest.
Yeah, we're not for.
Sometimes there's a lot of bad practice out there with, you know, people in my industry, don't get me wrong. And then even sometimes agents steer people the wrong way because they want to get that listing. So they tell them this number that they could sell for, you know, 4 months later, sorry, Mr. Seller, the market's not, you know, giving us, you know, what we thought. You have to lower your price. No, yeah, you're going to have to do repairs on top of that. Pay me my 6%. And in between, you've had all these closing costs or holding costs. So, you know, I point these things out, and people start looking at, you know, apples to apples, like, hey, I guess it does make sense to sell here because it's guaranteed and I'm done in 2 weeks, versus, yeah, you might be able to get a little bit more, but there's so many unknowns and there's so many things that you can't control. And so that's what we do. We just try to educate people on their options, and usually it works out.
Yeah, and that's in any business too. I've talked about this in past episodes too, just educating people, getting them as much information as possible, because it's in every business, like you just said. There are people that are out there that are going to take advantage of, you know, people, unfortunately, and the more information we can give them, that's what's important.
We really pride on transparency. I mean, we have an A+ rating with a Better Business. I mean, I am a licensed broker, so, you know, I'm held to a different standard. So, you know, ethics, responsibility, transparency, honesty, integrity. I mean, these are things that I am just as a human being, let alone a businessman. So, you know, and anybody that comes into my organization, they understand that, and that's how we do business.
So I mean, wholesaling's big. What you're doing, investment properties, it's a big thing right now. You see it in a lot of different, you know, online stuff. You know, you can, you know, learn from my course here and there. So let's go on to your side as a wholesaler real quick. So if someone is thinking about getting into wholesaling, you know, what's the first step that they need to take to get into the business?
The first step for someone that would want to get into the business is educate yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, there is a lot of information. There's a lot of free resources. YouTube, you can, Google wholesaling, how to, plenty of free resources out there. That's easy to find. And then the second thing I would probably do is start understanding your market. Okay. If you're gonna do it in your current market, or you're gonna go virtually, you want to understand where cash transactions are taking place, and also who are the main buyers of that area. So you can start looking at what's actually moving. So you can start concentrating on your marketing efforts so that you can find these assets and match them up with that cash buyer. For me, I'm a expert in my territory, because you could tell me, hey, this zip code or that zip code, what do we need to buy it for? And usually I can tell you right off the top, where we need to be, or if, we need to renegotiate or something. So number one, educate yourself. Okay. Learn the process. Number two, learn your market, know your numbers. The worst thing you could do is start making offers to a seller that you can't perform on, because then you're hurting the home seller, and you're making a bad name for the business. So don't start going out there and start firing off offers if you can't perform. So you need to make sure that if you make an offer, right, and you sign your name to that contract, I'm not saying sometimes a cancellation doesn't happen, but when that seller says, okay, well, we're packing up, or hey, I'm telling my tenant, they're giving them a notice to vacate, and then 30, 45 days go by, and then you can't find a buyer, that's bad business. So make sure you educate yourself on how to make offers, and then who the buyers are, so that you can match them up and actually get the deal closed and serve the seller like you intended to.
Awesome. So I want to talk a little bit more about your company and you, and just trying to deliver to somebody that's potentially going to hire a wholesaler too. So what are you doing to stand out from the rest of the many wholesale companies? You got into this a little bit, but I want to go dive deeper into it. What should people take notice of when choosing a wholesaler?
Well, I think what you should understand is a wholesale is just a disposition strategy. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I don't consider myself just a wholesaler. That's a strategy I learned to get me into the business. Now I'm a real estate entrepreneur, right? I close on properties, I flip properties, I do notes, I do apartments, I do, anything in the real estate space that makes sense. So wholesaling is just a disposition strategy, which is my favorite because we use it every day and it's efficient. But what you would want to educate a person with a home is we're the we buy houses guys. Okay. If you see the signs, we buy houses fast, we pay cash for homes. Those are legitimate companies. However, not everyone is equal. Okay. So, if I am interviewing potential investors to buy my home, I want to look at their website. Okay. What kind of social presence do they have? Do they have reviews? Can you show me at least 2 or 3 HUDs of you buying a house? Do you have proof of funds? How many houses have you bought in the last 60 to 90 days? These are questions no one asks us because they don't really know. But since I'm speaking to you home sellers, and if you're considering this, consider it like an interview. I mean, yes, there's a low barrier of entry to call yourself a cash buyer, right? Doesn't mean you actually have the cash, but people go out and say, yeah, I buy cash all the time. They don't have a dime to their name. So be careful with whom you're dealing with, ask qualifying questions, and ask for proof. So if anyone was to ask me, do you have a bank statement to show proof of funds? Yes, absolutely. Can you show me some HUDs of houses that you bought? Yes, absolutely. Do you have any reviews? Yes, absolutely. So those are all things that I pride myself on that maybe, someone else can't really show because they are just getting into the business and they haven't had any actual deals close yet. That's probably one of the last persons I want to make sure that I'm going to sign a contract with to make sure that my house gets done in 30 days. And sometimes, if you're getting a set of offers and there's one like that's incredibly higher than the rest, that could be, it's too good to be true. And that person doesn't really know what they're doing. And they're making an offer that is uneducated and they're not really sure what they're going to do with that property. So don't let someone tie up your property unless they have the means to do it and a reputation.
So let's dive deeper into that one now. I mean, as far as pricing, so if I always, everybody, price is such a big thing in any business, no matter what company you're at. Some people just look at the number. I actually get into this all the time, and they don't really look at the overall of value of what you're delivering, even though you may be priced higher or whatever, whether it's real estate, construction, whatever business you're in. What should customers know up front when discussing pricing structure, with the wholesale company? So if you're going up against a guy that's going to offer them lower than you, how are you getting around that?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, again, it goes back to, price is a number.
Mm-hmm.
I can give you a price, but if I don't have the means to perform on that, then you're kind of rolling the dice.
Mm-hmm.
So it goes back to experience and credibility. Like if you're really needing to sell your house fast, you can't afford to have someone lock up your house. I say that word. What I mean by lock up, when you sign a contract with a buyer, they're actually holding keys to that property in essence, because you can't turn around and say, you know what, I changed my mind, I'm going to go with someone else, unless that buyer can't perform. But typically they're writing contingencies in that contract that are going to give them the ability to either close on it or assign the property or their interest to someone else, or hey, they could take you 30-40 days down the road and then call you and say, you know what, I couldn't come up with the money or the funds, or my investor partner didn't approve it, whatever. They're going to give you some story, and now you just lost 45 days. You've lost time, and I'm sure you have holding expenses, and I'm sure, hey, maybe you're selling this property because you're going to buy another one, and now your 1031 timeline got all screwed up. So, I talked about this briefly, a few minutes ago, but vet the people that are making offers. And I think you'll be surprised that a lot of people can't give you a proof of funds when they're saying, yeah, I could buy your $150,000 house. Okay, great. It sounds great. Show me the bank statement. Or, hey, do you have a line of credit? Or do you have something that's legit that I feel comfortable giving you this deal? You know what I mean? A lot of people, it's kind of funny, I've bought in so many houses and no one's ever stopped to think and asked me, do you have the money? They just kind of assume,
Mm-hmm.
And so it's something that I would logically ask someone, like, hey, I do it all the time. If I have a house on the market and, hey, do you have proof of funds? Or, hey, I'm wholesaling this house and I've got buyers all the time that want to come to me and buy my properties. I'm like, great, show me a proof of funds. So that usually will vet out the tire kickers from the professional home buyers. There's a difference between a professional home buyer and a wannabe.
Yeah.
So that's my advice.
Great advice. So let's talk about the process a little bit too. Now that we're talking about price and everything, you talked a little bit about this, but let's go deeper into it. So from the pre-planning stage all the way until the home is closed, explain each stage and what a customer needs to expect.
Well, it's very similar to your traditional escrow, right? So there's not a whole lot of difference, except we move quicker and we eliminate a lot of the unnecessary red tape and bottlenecks that you see with the traditional method. So in a traditional method, you're going to meet with an agent, right? You're going to interview an agent. They're going to tell you that they can get you the most money for your house than anybody else. And their goal is to get a listing agreement. And then their next move is going to be to stick a sign in the front yard, take pictures, and put it on the local MLS. And that usually stops their efforts. They, I could say this because I'm a broker, but I think brokers and agents are lazy. I think they'll just do the minimal work needed and rely on the MLS to sell it. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. So you as the seller, you've got a listing agreement in place. You're locked in with that agent. They're going to come stick a sign, and now here come potential buyers coming in and out of your house at all times. Now, again, it goes back to, are they qualified? Can they get a loan? What's their situation? So you have all these potentially unqualified people walking through your house at all times of the day, disturbing your peace. And then you get presented offers, right? So then those offers come in and you got to select it. So you also have to make sure that the offer you select, that person that's buying the house has, at least a pre-approval, has the means to get a loan. If you've gotten to that point and you accepted an offer, now you got to wait. Now all of the power and influence goes into the lender's hand. They got to send an appraiser out. They got to start now doing their underwriting and making sure that this buyer has the income, they have the credit, they have, the certain debt to income ratios in line. And, I've seen things happen all the time where, again, buyers are not, educated in the process. They don't understand that in order to get a real estate loan, your income needs to be, a certain percent more than your debt, right? I mean, people go out in the middle of an escrow and go buy a car, and that screws up their whole DTI, and then the deal falls apart because they didn't know. So now you're the seller. Oh my gosh, I have my moving boxes packed, and I just got a call, at, 2 or 3 days before the escrow is going to close that this whole thing fell apart. Mm-hmm. Now you got to start all over. Okay. Another thing that happens in the escrow process is people will trade price on you. So they'll give you the price that, you agree to, then come back in with a bunch of inspections. So the home inspector, the termite, the roof, you name it, and they start, getting these reports done, and home inspectors make their money on, pointing out all the bad things in the house. The termite company makes money by pointing out all the issues with the termites. The AC is not working, blah, 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 so all of a sudden that, net offer you had in your mind now could be significantly less, tens of thousands less if, someone's got you in the corner and you have no other prospects, and you've got to sell, you may end up losing money in that process, right? Mm-hmm. Or what if the appraisal doesn't come back at value? So many different things can happen. And so, when you're going through that traditional process, buckle up, and nothing's done till it's done. You know what I mean? So once that property is recorded and you get the wire or check, then you can, consider it done. But up until that point, as you know, dude, the real estate game is crazy. I mean, anything can happen, and it quite often does. Yeah. So I would just say weigh out your options. Like, interview a few guys and see what kind of cash offer you can get that's going to eliminate all of the unknown, right? Mm-hmm. Assuming you can vet that person, they've got the cash to close, they're legit, and they have a track record. More often than not, it's going to fall right in with what you expect. I tell people, minus any, liens or encumbrances or back taxes or anything that comes up on that prelim, that's your responsibility. But if I tell you it's $100,000, it's $100,000 net to you. And, a lot of people, like that transparency. They like the fact that it's a good chance that that's going to happen. There's not all these other motivate or external, issues that could pop up to kill the deal.
Okay. So another question too, kind of going off subject here a little bit, but with real estate too, obviously we know the economy is good, and a lot of people, I'm sure you've heard too, or they think we're at a peak right now as far as real estate prices. Do you think we're at the top of the market as far as real estate prices currently?
I definitely think it's still a buyer's market. I'm sorry, a seller's market. Excuse me. Definitely a seller's market. I don't think that we're going to have a seller's market for much longer. If anyone tells you, they know exactly, I think that, they're probably lying. No one knows for sure,
Yeah.
but it's cyclical. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. There's going to be a correction. It always happens. What goes up comes down to some degree. Is it going to be like '08? No, but there will be a correction in there. So I don't know if that's a 7%, 10% or more or less. No one really knows. But yeah, I mean, the economy could, be volatile as the election comes up. Things go differently than expected on that. Who knows, dude? I mean, stock market's been riding high lately. We've seen some dips in that. You've got the Fed still keeping their interest rates super low. If you read deeper into that, that means they see some indicators that there is going to be a correction, so they're trying to stimulate it. Dude, I'm not an expert, man. Like, I don't focus on the economy. I focus on my economy. Mm-hmm. So at the end of the day, I don't care who the president is. They're not going to put food on my table. Yeah. So I've got to go and do what I've got to do to make sure that I take care of my family at the end of the day. Real estate is what I've chosen to do. So, I'll just ride the wave. I'll adjust as the market does. Here's the great thing. Housing is something that people can't do without. Yeah. Yes, the luxury stuff and all that is going to probably take more of a hit, but people still need to rent. People still need to have a house over their head. People are buying and selling every single day. So I don't get too caught up in what could possibly happen. And frankly, as an investor, when the market does go down, that's really when we start to buy more. As Warren Buffett said, when there's blood in the streets, get greedy. So
I love sell high.
Yeah. I'm not saying that's, a great thing for everybody, but it's the truth.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, so on that topic too, so what are you doing with prices being the way they are currently? What are you doing to find the best deals for your investors?
What I tell my students is, we're not real estate investors, we're marketers. Mm-hmm. So you have to get really great at being a marketing guy, and, real estate just happens to be the product. I don't care what kind of business you're in, what you're selling. If people don't know you, if people don't know what you could do for them, then you're almost irrelevant. And now with social media, being on podcasts like this, it gives more of a platform for people to explain how they can help people, what they do. I help busy individuals grow their money by investing in real estate vehicles without having to deal with tenants and toilets. So what that means is, guys that have interest in real estate, they're worried about having their money in stocks, because that's, to me, that's like gambling. I help them put it into vehicles that's safe, secured by a deed of trust in first position on assets that are not over leveraged. So what I've learned is to be really great at finding deals that no one else knows about. Okay. So I've never bought a house off the MLS. I don't really deal with the auction type stuff. I've just gotten really good and put a system together where we're constantly putting our message in front of, direct to the seller. So they're either getting a message, a voicemail, a text, a postcard, a Facebook post, you name it. People, for the most part, will get my message at some point, and we're just consistent with it. So with consistency, we do have our phones ringing. So, I consistently drive seller leads to my business every single month.
Okay. And so on that investment side of things too, finding that your investors, obviously, that you deal with, and yourself and your company too. So what's a preferred investment property look like for you or the common investor? What criteria does it have to meet to fit within that portfolio?
Just depends on what that investor is looking to do. So I have a pool of investors that like to flip properties. That's how they make their money, right? They're full-time rehab guys. So when you're a full-time rehab guy, you're in the construction business,
Mm-hmm.
you're managing crews, making sure your contractors aren't ripping you off. You're at, making sure that you're finding the best deals at Home Depot or Lowe's, back and forth, making sure, the job's getting done. So there really isn't a lot of time to do marketing. Like, how are we going to find the next house to flip if we're always at the job site flipping the house, right? So, a lot of flippers rely on a guy like me who focuses on driving quality deals into my pipeline, and then I can then wholesale or assign those contracts to them, right? So I know who the main, 5 to 10 flippers are in my areas. I've gotten to know them on a personal level. I understand their numbers. I understand how typically they're going to, evaluate a rehab, what they're, hey, this guy puts in $20 a foot on an average, cosmetic flip, not including roof or windows or, a pool, if that's, part of the deal. So I make my offers with the end guy in mind. So I'm like, hey, I'm Mr. Seller. I need to be here because in the back of my mind, I know I'm probably not going to end up closing on the house, but I have my preferred partners that will. That's why I'm very confident in making these offers, because I've dealt with these guys over the years. They consistently perform. They have the money to perform. So I know where I need to be in order to make my profit, and then they buy it on a quick email or text, yes, because I know their spread. I understand they've got holding costs. They have cost of money. They have insurance. They have rehab costs. They have cost of resale, insurance. I factor all that into a spreadsheet, and then it spits out, a percentage based on cash return. And that's where I know I can move my properties. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. The other bucket is, hey, investors that like to buy and hold as rentals.
Yeah.
So, I know how to run a cap rate. I know how to run a cash on cash return. I understand a net operating income. I understand pro forma versus actual. In my experience when I ran property management, I saw the real numbers. I saw like, hey, what's the real expense ratio in an apartment complex? I could see someone's numbers and be like, okay, these are not real. There's no way. I already know, it's going to cost you anywhere from 45 to 50% expenses, annually to run an apartment complex. So if the guy's like, yeah, I run it at 20%, it's not a real number. He's kind of hiding the true numbers. So it's just time and experience. I can find a deal and analyze it quickly, and I know, okay, my landlord buyer buys that, or I'll buy it. That's the great thing about being great at marketing, is because I bring in all these properties and I get to look at them first.
Mm-hmm.
So I could pick and choose what I want. I could wholesale this. I could buy this. I could keep this one in the rental. You never know. So the key is to be able to control the inventory.
Yeah.
So now that I can control the inventory, I can disposition them however I see fit.
It's and it's basically like you talked about, just knowing your market more than anybody else, pretty much.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
really.
And knowing what, and then also, going back to, hey, I make, this is a relationship business. So, I don't ever look at competitors. I look at them as business partners. There's plenty of deals to go around. So I want to know how I can help grow someone else's business. I want to see how I can provide value to them. And typically the way I provide value is bringing great deals to them.
Mm-hmm.
I make the money that I need to make. They make the money they need to make. It's a win-win.
Awesome. So, you talked about the process a little bit, and we've jumped around on it from start to finish. As far as somebody getting into it in your business, let's go, how do you guide your customers throughout the process to help avoid unwanted surprises? Obviously you said it's quicker. And so, it's not like your typical real estate transaction where, okay, there's an inspection. Oh no, this is leaking. I need that taken care of. Otherwise I'm pulling out of the deal. But with you, it's different, like we talked about. So how do you avoid the unwanted surprises and just probably being more upfront with your customers, I'm sure, and communication. I talk about it with everybody too. Communication's so key. So how are
Sure.
you going about this?
Well, now that the way my business looks, I rarely talk to sellers anymore. I, I rarely go to the actual properties. My team is out there. They're kind of the front of the face of the the system now. Matt buys houses. I've got several acquisition guys that are the face of the company, and that just goes back to training them. I go on appointments with them when we start. I show them, this is why I'm making this offer. Here's why. I teach them, okay, what does a roof really cost to replace? What's people freak out. Oh, the fascia is all damaged. It's not a big deal. Like, oh man, the termite. I'm like, look, we can replace the subfloor. It's not going to cost you thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. So I've learned through just my experience, man, like, managing properties when I first started to owning properties myself. Like, you start understanding, the business, you understand the numbers. So the first thing I do is I just educate my guys on what actual costs of renovation are. And then the second thing is I teach them how to value and pull comparable sales. So, like kind for like kind, like, hey, just this property is in this neighborhood, but, this is what we're seeing. We look at the comps. So I'm teaching them how to value the property. And then I show them through our spreadsheet, here's our real costs, here's the cost of money, here's the insurance, here's the resale cost, and this is where we need to be, typically on an offer. And then I just say, this is what you explain. It's very simple. We're not trying to pull the wool over people's eyes. We're not trying to like, hey, show them this, but it's a smoke and mirror. No, we're very articulate on our offers and why we make them. But typically, to really boil it down, we're searching deeper than the numbers for people. It's more of a, what's going on in your situation? What can you share with me why you decided to give us a call? Is there some type of significant life event that's happening, that you decided to go this route? And I mean, I've had, I've been in people's living rooms when I started, like I'm in tears because, it finds out, my wife's, in the other room with dementia. She doesn't recognize me anymore. We have all of our memories in this house. Like she, we might lose her, and the medical bills are stacking up. We just need to get out. We just need to sell this property because I need some money to put her in a long-term care facility. And at that point, it's never about profit. It's like, man, like how can I help this person? Because at the end of the day, it's like these people have created their lives and their memories there. And, last thing this guy's thinking about is, how much money he can get for the property. He just wants, it's too painful for him. And we end up providing more solutions than anything. So we're not in the, I tell my guys, look, if there's not a deep needed why or a serious problem going on with these people, more than likely it's not going to be a fit. So I spend a lot of time with my guys helping them identify the deeper reasons why people are needing this type of exit, and so we start getting into circumstances that are personal and we start then uncovering the real reasons. And then when we understand the real reason, then we can start, okay, I get it. Okay. And then we ended up walking them backwards as to why we have to make this offer. We show them like, here's where, the rehab cost is, this kitchen, this bathroom, this roof, it all needs to be replaced. Typically this is what it's costing us. And then, we do have cost of money. And then when we put the sign back in the yard after we've done our work, we're going to have to pay commissions out of that. So after you take all that out, we're just trying to make an honest profit. And here's where we typically like to be, anywhere from 12 to 15%, most cases. And then once you break it down and it's reasonable, like people are like, okay, I get it. Like you have to make a profit too. I appreciate you coming in here and moving fast. Great. Let's do it.
Yeah. And I mean, that's actually you were spot on because you were going right into my next question about customer service, and how it's so important, communication. But let's talk about, after the fact with, your customers and everything. building, I always talk about with everybody, no matter what industry you're in, building long-term relationships is such a big thing, no matter the business. So how do you maintain relationships with your customers or investors, after their property's sold, or you get them a property?
Yeah. So, when we're buying houses, usually it's a one-off, right? Because they don't have multiple properties. Every now and then someone might have, a couple other properties. They'll end up calling us back and saying, hey, that was a great experience. I got this other property. Most often it's just a one-off transactional, we buy the house and then we end up doing what we got to do with it. But, where the relationships are, I have relationships with my private money lenders. I have relationships with other investors in town, because, we ended up working with each other. Right. And so to answer your question, with my lenders, it's very simple: pay them back and do it on time. So I definitely take a lot of pride and very, very, very important for me to take care of my investors, because they believe in me. They're, obviously they're investing. There is some risk, in anything you do, but, typically people are going to invest with people and not so much, that specific asset, I've developed relationships where I can just call up, my guy and say, hey, I got this deal. I need $200,000. Okay, cool. Let me know. It's gotten to that point, before you have to give them the whole presentation and all that. But, after you've done what you say, you've kept your word, you've performed, you start, having those relationships grow and the trust grows. Okay. So, that's first and foremost. And then with other competitors, if you will, I try to help. I try to, offer value. I try to help younger, newer investors find their way in the market, give them advice, so on and so forth. So it's all, the golden rule, right? Treat others like you would, second commandment, love your neighbors, as you love yourself. So it's not hard, it's hard to build a reputation, and it's super easy to have it tarnished. So, you can get, sometimes, that dollar sign will have people do crazy stuff. And, you just got to stay true to your core values and who you are as a person, and try not to let the money, jade you, and just do right. And as you do continue to do the right thing, your reputation grows. People want to do business with people that know, like, and trust. And that's what I've just built my business on.
Yeah, we're similar too. It's all about doing the right thing, and with every customer, and staying consistent with it too. Because unfortunately, in any business, there's a lot of people out there that don't do the right thing, and it is all about that dollar sign, like you just said, and that's the unfortunate part about it too.
Yeah. And the thing is, you doing the right thing consistently over time will end up being much more profitable in the long run, as opposed to, doing the unethical thing and trying to get over and get every single dollar and do something that's wrong. That's a short-lived, that's a scarcity mindset. I'm in this business for the long run. I don't plan on, trying something new in the next 6 months, This is what I do. This is what I know. This is what I've built everything on. So, it's too much of my livelihood and reputation on the line for me to, try to screw someone over to make a couple extra bucks. It's just short-sighted thinking. It's not the right way to do business.
Awesome. So Matt, very last question. I ask this to everybody: what exactly, because this is what this show is about, what exactly do people need to look for when wholesaling a property, and why should they choose Matt Sells Houses as their real estate company of choice?
Yeah, man, I think it's an equal playing field in all things being equal. I think it goes back to, the person and the core values of that business. For me, I hire, I fire based on core values. I run my business based on my core values. I'm a man of faith. I'm a Christian man, so I'm not afraid to tell people that that I have a belief in God, in Jesus Christ. I believe God's blessed all of us with very, very awesome, unique abilities. We all have unique abilities. And so for me, I lead, with that in mind. I believe God is my CEO, and he gives and he takes away. So if I could stay in line with, the second commandment is treat others like how I wanted to be treated, then that's all we can do. That's all we can put out there. And time will tell, and your actions do speak louder than words. But if you have a core value, if you have a belief system, it's kind of like Arete, right? They have a very specific core value on who they bring into that organization and what that organization stands for. It's the same thing. And, it's the same thing for my company. And so I like to sit down and look people in the eye and say, look, I'm a human being, but I've made mistakes in the past, but this is who I am at the core. This is what I believe in. I'm here to serve you. I'm here to make it in your best interest. I'll tell you straight up if we're not a fit. I'll tell you straight up if you can go get more money, if you should list it or do something else. And I'm going to give you my honest, my fair and best shot. And if that's good for you, awesome. If not, I totally respect that. And, hopefully down the road we could do business. And that's just how I treat it.
Matt, yeah, amen to that. That was that's probably the best answer I got on that last question too. I love that. So awesome, man.
It's
yeah,
it's the truth.
Yeah, that's awesome. And last thing too, I know you're doing quite a bit of online stuff. And where can people? I know you're teaching and everything too. You also have a podcast too. So let's mention what these are so people can find you, where they can find you on social and so on.
Okay, so yeah, I'm always on Instagram posting stuff. So you can find me on IG at Phenom Investor. I have a YouTube channel, Matt Garabedian, Facebook, Matt Garabedian. So you can find me on those platforms. I've shared my podcast with you, Bill. So, we're doing some rebranding of just the way it's going to look and stuff, but you can find that on iTunes, and that's called the Phenom Investor Blueprint on iTunes. And it talks a little bit about real estate, but it's talk about more like, the discussion we had, like, hey, what's our bigger purpose? Why are we on this earth? Business is cool and it's fun and exciting, but I believe we all have a bigger purpose. So, I talk about mindset. I talk about self-development. I talk about growth. I talk about, my faith, all that stuff on the podcast. So I hope that, provides some blessing for people that want to listen to that. I do teach coaching. I've got if you're interested in wholesaling and you want to know, like, hey, how I built my business, I have a course out there. So hit Bill up and say, I want to, find out about Matt's course. And then we could talk and get those people lined up with that. That's pretty much what I've got going on. I plan to do more content and put the podcast and the YouTube page out there more and more. So that's the plan.
Yeah, I've seen some of your content. I mean, yeah, and wholesaling is such an in-depth thing too. Like we already discussed, that people definitely should reach out to you if they want to learn more, because it's something you just can't jump right into. And yeah, that's why I loved having you on today too, because it's a big process.
And I like to see people, honestly, I'm a competitor, but I'm also not a hater. So I love to see people win. I love to see people go after their goals and dreams and reach new heights. So if I could help you on that journey in some capacity, I'd love to. I'm accessible. I'll actually call people back or email people back or message people back. And so, reach out and let's see how we can help each other.
Awesome. Matt, I really appreciate you coming on today, man. This has been awesome. So much great info and value on both ends to somebody that may be interested in getting in the wholesale business or buying houses for cash, or even somebody that has to sell their house that way too. So I really appreciate you coming on, man.
Oh, it was my pleasure, and I really appreciate you having me on the show. And I know you're dropping a lot of value for people in the real estate space and consumers and people that are interested. So, kudos to you and keep it up, man.
Awesome. Thanks again, guys. And I'll see you guys on the next episode.
Thanks, guys.